Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump on into it, a couple quick links. As many of you may know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. These audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? I noticed this one email that kind of popped out. It was second to last, so it was second to first, kind of. And a 72-year-old subscriber out of Mississippi wanted to share their experience with me. Gave me their phone number. I called them up in hopes that we could do an interview. Very shy and wasn't comfortable talking on air because of his age, his accent, and this and that. He said, I tried everything. But we had an amazing conversation and an amazing experience that I'm going to share with you guys. This happened over 40 years ago. He was in his early 30s. He was living in New Augusta, Mississippi at the time, and had gone kind of camping, hiking, boozing with friends of his. He was not married at the time. He married late. And went to this national forest called DeSoto National Forest in Mississippi. So we get talking about the area. Now, when I talk to people and they're sharing their experiences, I pull it up on the map and I look at the surrounding area, and I'm really starting to notice a common trend. Actually, I've noticed it for a while, but this in particular, and he actually commented on it as well. There is within this DeSoto National Forest region, there is over 5 cemeteries within this surrounding area. Miles apart, but still 5 within, probably 5 square miles. Herring Cemetery, Breland Cemetery, Ryland Cemetery, Mount Nebo Cemetery, and Thomas Cemetery. And I was like, that's crazy. He goes, I was going to bring that up to you because I had been thinking about how many experiences are surrounded in the cemetery region, like that Boy Scout experience where those young boys, that the young guy was trying to get his Eagle Scout and had a horrific experience. And then at the end of it all, Men in Black come and they've got friggin' reptilian eyes. Anyway, he's out DeSoto National Forest. He remembers it vividly to this day. Years have gone by and he can, sound off immediately like that. That's why I was like, I go, you are good. I'd love for you to share it in your own lingo. And cause he had that Southern kind of accent and kind of wording, real sweet guy. So 40 years ago, this area was very similar to what it is now. There hasn't been a lot of growth in population. There is, some growth in the area, but nothing major. And his name is Ashley. He goes by Ash. So him and his buddies, there's 4 of them, and they decide to go on this kind of camping excursion. They drive out into DeSoto, and there's a Route 29 kind of runs through, and there's this area called Joe's Creek, and they set up right aside of the creek. Everything is going very smooth. It's a beautiful, beautiful land out there. A lot of trees, and they had brought in enough food, enough beer, and they were just getting away from the families. He like I said, he didn't have children and wasn't married as of yet, but his friends all were. So they had all heard of Booger, and which many of you know is Bigfoot. Nothing new to them growing up. Catamount, word used. It's a Southern term used quite frequently down there by the old timers. And so they're camping out. If you get there, it's probably just before dusk. They set camp up, and they are got their campfire going. They had actually stopped and grabbed a bite to eat on the way down, so they weren't too hungry. They were just drinking beers and relaxing. They had a couple of kind of makeshift lean-tos set up with tarps in an old army tent. He was sleeping in an old one-man army tent with a army cot. And probably right before they were going to crash out for the evening, they heard kind of this whacking, which we know now as tree knocks, and some whooping off in the distance. Of course, they are armed. A few of them had pistols, and there was a couple of rifles, long guns with them. They weren't too worried, because as far as he was concerned, he had heard this. This isn't his first time. He's never seen anything, but he's heard it. He's felt that silence. He's, heard the noises. Few of the guys are kind of, what the hell is that? They end up calling it a night. They get up the next morning. Everything's good. They go on a hike, and, just nothing major, just putzing around. And they kind of blaze their own trail. They're marking their trail with some tags. They're marking trees with tags so they can find their way back to their campsite, so they know exactly which way to go without getting lost. So they, walk maybe 50, 100 feet, tie a tag, keep walking. And probably two hours into their hike, one of the guys keeps catching something out of the corner of his eye. Like, what the hell is that? And something is running, kind of paralleling them as they're walking. And, they kind of stop and look around. They realize that the silence is there. And that's when they really start to kind of like, what should we do? Ash is like, let's just keep pushing on. We can't show any fear. I've never seen one of these things. I'm not seeing anything out of my periphery. But if you are, let's just keep pushing on. Let's not show fear. Let's not acknowledge them. And they won't bother us. That was his view on this. They get to this kind of clearing area and they sit down, getting a drink of water from their canteens. And once again, 40 years ago, plastic bottles were not a thing. Old canteens were. And they're relaxing and kind of getting ready to go back, figure out what they're going to do for dinner, and drink some more beers. They're about 1.5 miles, 2 miles from their campsite. They're not too far, but they're not right close. They start hiking back to a camp, and that's when he notices something out of the corner of his eye, and he continues to walk. He, doesn't say anything to anybody, but he's keeping an eye out. And as they're collecting their tags, they don't want to leave anything out there, obviously. And he thinks that he sees this wolf running on all fours, but he's like, that's way too big to be a wolf. It's double the size of a normal wolf. This thing's, at least 4 feet at the shoulder blades. This thing's big. And at the time, he didn't really believe that there were any wolves in Mississippi. So he's kind of confused. He's seen coy dog, he's seen coyote, but this is very wolf-like, and it's kind of keeping its distance, but it's watching them walk back to their camp. They get back to their camp with nothing else happening. The night kind of goes off. They're having their beers. They start the fire. They're having dinner, beans and hot dogs. That's pretty much what they brought for the entire trip. Beans and hot dogs, some Spam and stuff like that. Real canned good kind of campsite meals. And so they end up getting pretty inebriated, and they crash out. He's in his one-man tent, and they call it a night. Well, sometime at night, he doesn't know the exact time. He knows that he can just start to hear the morning kind of woodland animals start to perk up. There's a difference in the birds and this and that from nighttime to daytime, morning time. But he can hear something kind of walking through their campsite, and he's laying there, and he's got an old revolver with him, and he's got it under his cot, this old wooden military cot. So he's laying there, and he knows where it is, and he reaches underneath him, and he's got an old .44 revolver, and he knows it's a .44 Magnum. He knows that, you know, it's a good defensive pistol for large game. And whatever is out in their campsite, he can hear this, that it is, you know, rather large, and it's bipedal. So he's like, this is either a big man or a Bigfoot. Exact words. So he finally has it, and he's laying on his back, and he's got it kind of on his chest, just waiting. And he's thinking that this thing's going to pull him right out of his tent by his feet. And he just lays there for, 2-3 hours go by, and nothing. Daylight's cracking. He can see daylight. And he gets out and looks around. Everyone's kind of moving around now, and he tells everyone, hey, I don't know what the hell was in our campsite, but it was big, and it was walking on two legs. Let's see how the day goes. And if we have anything else happen, let's get the hell out of here. Everyone kind of agrees with him. A few of the other guys are, uneasy once they hear that, because they had already seen something in their periphery. He has not said anything about the wolf yet. This larger than a normal sized wolf. But it's not this huge kind of monster wolf. So they get up, they make their coffee, and they cook some Spam. Now, what he said to me was, I've heard you and I've heard other people talk about how these Bigfoot like bacon. He said, well, Spam is just canned, fat, gross bacon. I kind of agreed with him at that point, because it's canned and it is gross, but it is good. So that's what they have for breakfast. They cook some Spam slices up. They have their coffee. They're planning their day. What are we going to do? Let's go for this hike. Let's go this way today. Hopefully we won't, have that same experience. So instead of going north, let's go kind of west. We'll follow Joe's Creek out. About an hour, 2 hours go by, and they decide, all right, let's get this day going. We've only got a day left. Let's make the most of it. So they get walking, they're hiking, and they're not hikers. They're more or less screwing around. Good old boys. And but they're still marking. They're still tagging their way, so they don't lose track of where their camp is. And they hike for about a mile and a half, and it's just past noon. The sun is right ahead of them, above them, and they get settled in, and they find this nice little kind of nook in the woods where there's some rocks set up. This creek runs by, and it's a real nice place to sit. One of the guys had brought in a flask with them, and they each take a little drink, and they're relaxing and talking. All of a sudden, they're sitting there shooting the breeze, and they can hear this kind of noise walking through the woods. Well, they all immediately shut up but they're hearing it. It's not bipedal. They can tell. They're thinking, oh shit, maybe it's a deer. Let's be real quiet and see if the deer's going to come to this water hole and drink. So they're sitting there, and all of a sudden, this wolf comes walking out of the woods and is staring at all four of these guys. And Ash says, this thing's eyes were this golden yellow, and it was staring right through me and all of us. Just, we're across the creek, probably 50 feet from this thing, and it's just staring at us. Well, it starts to growl, and they all have a firearm with them, and one of the guys that's sitting next to Ash, he stands up and pulls his pistol and aims it at this wolf. Well, as he aims it, the wolf stands straight up and kind of growls, lets this like ear-shattering growl mixed with this howl. But it's only about 5.5 feet tall. It's smaller than your average man standing, on bipedal. Everyone's jaw just drops at that point. But the guy's still pointing his pistol at this thing. Now, within seconds of this creature standing, or this guy pulling his pistol and this creature standing, this huge Bigfoot comes. You can hear this thing thundering through the woods, and it stands in between the Dogman and the guys. So it puts itself in the bullet trajectory lane. Now, and just lets this ear-shattering kind of roar, roar out. And he said, Jeff, I've never heard anything like this. He said, I can just imagine a grizzly bear just roar, but 10 times louder. We all felt it, and we instantly just kind of pushed ourselves against this kind of muddy wall that we're sitting against. And the creature just stares at them. Ash says, put your gun down, put your gun down. He remembers like hollering it out, put your gun down. The guy puts his gun down, and the Bigfoot, this huge Bigfoot, kind of turns and looks at this small 5.5 foot tall Dogman and pushes it back. It drops onto all fours, and it takes off the opposite direction. Now, they're all watching this like going, what the hell are we seeing? What is that? We know what this thing is, but what the hell is that dog thing? And when did they learn how to stand? What Ash and everyone sees beyond that Bigfoot, they can see past it, is there's 2 other Bigfoot, about 4.5, 5 feet tall, and this Dogman stands up. And they all turn around and they look at this huge Sasquatch and this, these guys standing there. But the juvenile Dogman, that's basically what it is standing with these juvenile Sasquatch. And they're watching this whole thing transpire. The guys are. The Bigfoot, the huge Bigfoot yells, just does this another roar, this ear-shattering roar and turns around and walks towards these two smaller Bigfoot and this smaller Dogman. The Dogman drops onto all fours and they all kind of run away from this scene. Well, when the huge Bigfoot gets to where these smaller juveniles were standing, it turns around and looks at the guys again and roars again. Like enough to say, get the hell out of here. Ash knew exactly, like, hey, you know, that we messed up. We messed up. Let's get the hell out of here. They got about a mile and a half walk. They know where they're going because they've kept, you know, they tagged these little trees with these, you know, little ribbons. And they're following the ribbon and they're talking like, what the hell did we just see? What was that? What was that dog, that wolf thing standing? Was that a werewolf? Was that a person? Are these Bigfoot people? Do they change? What the hell is going on? You know, mind you, 40 years ago. 1970s. What the hell is, you know, no one's talking about Dogman. They're thinking werewolf. They get back to their campsite, you know, half an hour, 45 minutes after all this occurred, and they do not even hesitate. They just start packing everything up and putting everything in. They had an old Blazer and they were just putting everything in this truck to get the hell out of there. As they're packing up, they see off in the distance, because they're looking, you know, they're keeping an eye out on what's going on. And they see this small, the second to largest Bigfoot and this Dogman are off watching these guys pack up their campsite. They're far enough away, so they're just like, oh shit, these things are here now. Where's that big one? Let's go. The Dogman is not standing bipedally. It's on all fours, and it's standing right next to this juvenile Bigfoot. And as the guys are packing and watching everything, they see the juvenile put its hand on the back of this wolf Dogman. They were still thinking wolf at the time, werewolf. Not petting it, but just kind of resting its hand on its haunches, its shoulders, and watching, you know. They pack up and they get in the Blazer and they back out and they're driving out. And as they're driving out, they can see this blur running through the woods adjacent to this dirt road that they're on. And when they get to a point, it runs in front of the Blazer. And it's this huge Bigfoot. It just runs right across the road in front of them. And so they slow down because they're like, what the hell? If we hit these smaller ones, this thing's going to come and, you know, tear this truck right apart. They continue to drive. Everyone's looking around. And the two guys in the back said, they just crossed behind us. Get out of here. Get out of here. They're following us. They make it to 29 and they haul ass back home to New Augusta. And that whole rest of that trip home, all they talked about was, what the hell did we just see? What was that wolf? He laughs at it now. He said, Jeff, you wouldn't believe the conversation. You'd think that we'd be talking about how that huge Sasquatch was yelling in our faces with this monstrous roar. But we're more confused about the Dogman. And we kept calling it this Wolfman, werewolf. And now here we are, 40-something years later, and we have a name for them. He said, but I'll tell you what, Jeff, I see why Luke and his family call them a walking wolf. Because Dogman, as much as it fits, walking wolf fits a hell of a lot more than a Dogman. And we speculated on, what might have happened, why this juvenile Dogman was with this Sasquatch family. Maybe, he said maybe this Dogman was a pup and maybe the mother or whatever had gotten killed by this huge Sasquatch and this Sasquatch took it in. But he said it was nothing my brain will ever forget. He said to see this thing stand in front of us and my buddy point the pistol and then it just stands up and it wasn't afraid. He said it wasn't. There was not fear in this juvenile Dogman. He said, but the second that Sasquatch got right there and you could hear just this pounding, he said it sounded like a bulldozer was going right through the woods, clearing away. But when it stood in front of that juvenile Dogman and pushed it back, that juvenile knew to get out of there and go back to where its friends were. He said, and then when we were watching this juvenile Bigfoot and Dogman stand there watching us, and that Bigfoot put its hand on its shoulders. A couple of the guys were like, maybe that's its pet. And years go by and Ash says, I don't believe in any way possible that was a pet. He said, I think that something happened where that Dogman's family, I don't know how they grow up, but something happened to where that juvenile Dogman was raised by that huge Sasquatch and its juvenile children. And that was the scariest, most life-changing experience Ashley has ever had in his entire life. He said, shortly after, I met a girl at a bowling alley. He said, I don't go in the woods anymore to drink beer. He goes, I didn't go in the woods after that to drink beer. He said, I drink beer at home or in a bowling alley. He said, screw the woods. I know what's out there. He said, those things are out there. And then he started to think about things as he learned what Dogman was. And he said, I've often wondered, Jeff, if when people talked about boogers and they talk about catamount, if they were referring to catamount as the Dogman and booger as the Bigfoot. And I said, Ashley, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I've heard that people refer to catamount as panthers and stuff. But mind-blowing. And to think that, you got this huge 8-foot Sasquatch just roaring at you. And then you see two more in the back, little ones. And then that juvenile Dogman with the juvenile Bigfoot is unbelievable. In DeSoto National Forest in Mississippi, circa 1973. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Ashley, I'd like to thank you for sharing this experience with me and everyone else. I wish you nothing but good health, and I hope after hearing this that you can come on and share this in your own words, because I don't give it justice. The way you shared it with me blew me away, brother. And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd really like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.